Are there any hornets in the hive? What's the buzz about? And I have the honor of being principal here at Harriet Bishop with all of these incredible students. Today is a very special day. Very rarely do we get an opportunity to gather as an entire family. For those of you that don't know, that's our cheer chant. Those are our reminders for how we behave whenever we gather, whenever we get together, and within our classrooms at Harriet Bishop. Today, what I would like to do before we get started and turn it over to the fourth graders is do a couple of thank yous. Of course, we are here to celebrate Veterans Day 2017. Each and every day in our building, I have the honor of watching you all do the Pledge of Allegiance. We do the Pledge of Allegiance to honor our country, to honor our flag, and to honor our freedom. But today, we honor those folks who have dedicated so much so that we could have our freedom, our veterans. So a few thank yous. Thank you first to our students, our fourth grade students, for organizing today's program. For all of you for your respect here today. To our staff, first and foremost our fourth grade staff, our music staff, our custodial staff, everybody for making today happen. And then to our entire staff that sits out there today. There's a lot of changing of schedules and things like that to make this happen so that we can celebrate our veterans. To our speakers, whenever we have students come up and take a microphone, it takes a great deal of courage. So I want to thank them. I thank the parents and the veterans that are in the crowd tonight, and any of our veterans who have sacrificed and given so much to our country. We are grateful. Just a couple of reminders for our behavior whenever we gather as a large family. As we talk about being respectful, today is a big day. And today is about our veterans. And so the expectations when we talk about being respectful is we listen to the music. We clap at those appropriate times. We're positive towards all of our performers. And my last one about being respectful is more for the adults in the crowd. But if you can just a reminder to check your cell phones and make sure that it's silent. That would be great. As we talk about responsible, it's sitting down on our bottoms. And it's our hands to ourselves, remaining quiet between the songs. It's focusing on our performance. And when there's time to talk, we keep it at a volume of 2. I would just like to say thank you. And at this time, I am going to turn it over to our fourth grade team as we honor Veterans Day 2017. Thank you.
bravely declared that the United States of America would be forever free.
Immediately young men from throughout the newly united colonies picked up their arms and swore to defend this land with everything they had, including their lives.
It wasn't until many years later that an official Veterans Day was proclaimed to honor all of the men and women who have served to defend our country.
Today we honor them all, including those who first stepped forward and bravely declared, "We the people of the United States." Please welcome Pack 239 and post the colors.
Color guard attention. Audience, please rise. Audience, those not in uniform, please stand over hard. Color guard advance. Color guard post to color. Color, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard dismissed. Audience, please be seated. Today across America, ceremonies will be held to honor and recognize veterans of the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard.
We remember those veterans who served in World War I. This war was called the Great War, the War to End All Wars. It raged from 1914 to 1918. There were over 4 million casualties in this war, more than 20 million military and civilian deaths.
American man and woman served heroically until the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918 when the war finally came to an end. Veterans Day is held on November 11th to remember the anniversary of the end of this war and to honor the memory of all those veterans who have served our flag.
Why did more teammates?
You're Once again, soldiers were called to defend those who could not defend themselves. Boys from the Midwest suddenly found themselves fighting in the Far East. Teenagers whose parents and grandparents had come to America from Europe found themselves fighting for freedom in their parents' homeland, which did not seem like home to them. Men and women from such hometowns as Tulsa, Miami, St. Cloud, and Albuquerque found themselves in the trenches of Normandy and Iwo Jima, where there were soldiers from all 50 states fighting for our country.
run from 1941 to 1945 and was the deadliest conflict in the history of the world. Today we salute all the veterans of this war, some who gave up their lives to try to keep our country safe, free, and beautiful.
soldiers would be called up again, this time in what has become known as the Korean conflict. Many more veterans served in this conflict, leaving their families behind to help fight. And then there was Vietnam. We salute the brave veterans who bore the weight of unimaginable conditions both at war and upon returning home. It is never too late to say thank you. So on this Veterans Day, we humbly say, thank you! Places with names we have rarely heard, our veterans heard the call and sacrificed for us all.
For those who continue to serve, we say that we have not forgotten you. For those who have served and come home again, we say thank you and welcome home.
No matter if served with the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, or Coast Guard, we are forever grateful for what you have sacrificed for us. Your sweat and tears are not forgotten. For a veteran who has served our country, please stand so we can recognize your honorable service.
Members and friends who have served in our country, some who are here today and some that live in our memories.
for having me today. This is truly a special event and a special school community, and I feel very fortunate that my son Tegan, over there, is a 5th grader in Miss Anderson's 5th grade class, and taking the time and effort to remember service members through ceremonies like this. It's just a marvelous undertaking led by the 4th grade team and supported by the entire staff and the parents of Harriet Bishop. Thanks so much for inviting me to participate. As a West Point graduate, I was lucky enough to have a fantastic and free education at an amazing school in New York. During my time in service, after this great education, I jumped out of airplanes, I flew off of aircraft carriers, and I ruck marched for miles on end in the heat and the cold. Now, rocking my Harriet Bishop dad bod, I couldn't march from here to the end of the gym, but I'm a father, a husband, an okay 8th grade basketball coach, and for the last 15 years, I've worked at Target. Now, I thought about wearing my uniform for today's ceremony, and that sounds like a great idea, but one little known fact about military uniforms is that when you stop actively serving, they spontaneously shrink in your closet. So now, even though I could never fit into these things, I did bring a couple of my uniforms today as symbols. They're symbols that help me remember my time in the Army. I've many wonderful and some not so wonderful memories of my 13 years wearing a uniform almost every day as a cadet, as a soldier, and an officer in the U.S. Army. There are many lessons I learned because of my time in service, and I hope to share a couple of those with you today. As a veteran, I believe there's no more noble calling than serving in our armed forces. When facing incredible challenges, members of our military inspire us with their leadership and love for one another. One key reason people serve in the armed forces is because of loyalty to each other. You will not find the cohesion that exists among our service members in civilian society. No sports team, church group, or work committee comes close to the strong bonds that you find among our service members. Our nation's service members are at their best when their sisters and brothers in arms are threatened. In the Army, I learned what being part of a team and leading a team is really all about. It isn't about popularity, it isn't about prestige, it's about caring about one another and helping one another accomplish any mission. These photos are just some examples of some of the small teams I was on throughout my time in the Army. One example I'd like to share about working on teams happened in Korea. We had several small groups of soldiers who were stationed on mountaintops all around the Korean peninsula to build a communications network. And I was part of an 8-person team who had to figure out how to get food and water and fuel and porta potties. Yes, porta potties on tops of mountains like those pictured here all across Korea. Together, we worked around the clock so that we could build the appropriate supply bundles that could be delivered by helicopters to help those small teams of soldiers survive for many weeks. We only accomplished this complex mission by working together as a team. Another great life lesson I learned in the service is how to overcome difficult challenges. In the Army, there are new challenges that come up almost every day. This photo on the right is one of me about to eat my first hot meal in over 30 days, and I was really, really hungry. There are lots of basic challenges like this, like how to survive with little sleep or food that service members encounter. There are physical challenges like learning how to box or doing a bunch of push-ups that you face as a service member. There's endurance challenges like marching with a heavy pack for days and nights. Or technical challenges like how to hover a helicopter. Sometimes when faced with challenges, the learning comes only when being pushed to failure. I experienced this when I was a pilot in training, trying for the first time to hover a helicopter. This is a very difficult task, but one that you need to master in order to be able to fly a helicopter. And the first time that I was tested on hovering, I failed. So I had to request, and I had to get additional training to learn how to do it successfully. I didn't give up, and I asked for help, and thankfully I was able to practice and practice and practice, and I finally learned how to hover a helicopter. Service members face challenges like this all the time, and they live a life of sacrifice. And that life isn't for everyone, and that's okay. Service members and their families just don't want to be forgotten. Not to be forgotten. That's not too much to ask. That is why events like this at Harriet Bishop help us remember those who helped our nation in times of peace and times of conflict. Beyond today, we each can make our own promise never to forget veterans in our communities and in our lives. Just as my uniform symbolizes military service for me, there are symbols all around us that can trigger us to remember. Military movies and television programs are great symbols that offer a time of reflection. As the credits roll at the end of the movie, you can take a moment to remember those who served, like my friend Colonel Mike DeRozier, pictured here with the Army War Tuba, who continues to serve beyond 25 years in the Army. Or Medal of Honor recipient Major Bruce Crandall, who saved many lives in Vietnam. Chief Warrant Officer Jen Shimmick, who currently flies for the Minnesota National Guard. Or my West Point classmate, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Borowitz, who used to pitch for the Army baseball team and recently retired after 25 years of service to our nation. And finally, First Lieutenant Nick Dewhurst, who grew up in my small hometown of Onalaska, Wisconsin, and in 2008, at the age of 23, tragically died in combat in Afghanistan. These are just a few of the service members and veterans I remember around this time every year. Beyond today, when you see a USAA commercial or any other military spot on TV, think of someone honored as part of today's program. When you see a service member in uniform, stop them, thank them, and remember those we honor today. These are simple but effective ways to continue to remember our service members so they are not forgotten. That's not too much to ask. It's a privilege to be among the other veterans and service members here today. We each have our own stories and lessons from our time serving our nation. It's been an honor to share mine as part of today's ceremony, and very respectfully, thank you.
Today we shared our songs to show our pride in our country. We'd like to say thank you to all for coming, and thank you to those who served.
Let us leave you with one final thought. Stand proud of all that has come before. Freedom is the prize for those that fought for our America.
While honoring the sacrifice and service today of so many veterans, we still only hope for world peace.
Thank you all for your attending our program.
Color guard attention. Audience, please rise and retire. Audience, salute the flag.